Hello and welcome to the Kennel Connection training video on the multi-location module. In this video, we'll be looking at the different ways in which to set up and manage multiple locations in the multi-location module. When using the multi-location module, you will be required to use login IDs and passwords in Kennel Connection. So when logged into Kennel Connection, the name of the person currently logged in will always appear at the bottom of the screen between the time and the word ready. So as we can see, I'm currently logged in under the admin ID. And while we will be looking at setup options first in the program, I do want to point out that while we are looking at the setup options, we are currently logged in under the main location, as can be seen here at the top of the client list. We will be going over this and choosing locations shortly. But first, we're going to go to the Business Info section, which can be found under the File tab in the Setup section. Select Business Info. And you will see that when using the Multi-Locations module, the Business Information section will have a Locations tab. Under this Locations tab, we'll find a list of all locations set up in our Multi-Locations module. For each location, we will have the business information and registration information for those locations, including our tax setup. We can also add and remove locations from the Multi-Location module in this Locations tab. Next, we are going to look at the System Options section. Keep in mind that since we have the main location selected here on the client list, we will be looking at the System Options section for the main location, and we will go over that again shortly. In the System Options section, you should have a Locations tab. Under the Locations tab are certain system options that we can set for this location on how it will function in the Multi-Locations module. In the first section, we have Share Across Locations. This will give us the option to choose whether or not certain items in Kennel Connection can be used at multiple locations instead of just the location they are created at. These options include gift cards, gift certificates, and package days. When these options are not checked, these items are only available at the location they are created at. Package days, for example, if we have packages created at one location and sold there for the customer, those package days will not be used if that customer goes to a second location. For gift cards and gift certificates, you will only be able to use them at the location they are created at unless the option to share across locations is checked. Below we have the option to include all locations on search. When this option is checked, using the search feature in Kennel Connection, whether it's by clicking on the binoculars icon in the File tab or the Quick Access bar, or when using the search feature when adding reservations, the system will check all locations for the search criteria entered. If this option is unchecked, the system will only check for the search criteria in the location you are currently at when searching. Below that, we have the option to process all open invoices at any location when taking payment. When this option is not checked, the multi-location module separates receipts and invoices based on the location where they are created. Because of this separation of revenue between the different locations, this means that an invoice created at one location cannot be paid at another location. When this option is checked, open invoices can be paid from any location. However, you will want to keep in mind that if you decide to share open invoices across all locations, this may affect how your revenue reports, sales reports, receipts reports display revenue, since you will be effectively mixing revenue between the two locations. So when using the multi-location feature with process all open invoices at any location when taking payment turned on, you may experience some difficulty separating your revenue when running revenue reports for individual locations. Below that, we have the option to use one QuickBooks file for all locations. When using the multi-location module in conjunction with the QuickBooks Direct Link module, you do have this option to include all locations in one QuickBooks company file. If you do not choose this option, each location will need its own separate company file, and a QuickBooks Direct Sync will have to be run separately for each location. One important thing to keep in mind, if you decide to include all locations in one QuickBooks file, is that doing so will require inventory items in each location to have unique codes. This is especially important to understand if you're using barcodes to track inventory items sold in Kennel Connection, because if you are doing so and you're selling identical items at these different locations in the multi-location module, the items will have to have a different barcode at each location. This is because all of those individual items will be saved in the same company file in QuickBooks, and QuickBooks will not allow multiple items with the same code. Since this is a restriction due to QuickBooks syncing requirements, there is no way around this option. So to reiterate, if you want to include all locations in one QuickBooks file, each location will have to have different codes for all inventory items other than the default items already included in the system. So if you want to use the same code or barcode for the same item at different locations, you will need to turn this option off and share each location in its own QuickBooks company file. Now, as I mentioned at the beginning of this video, using the multi-locations module requires us to use login IDs and passwords in Kennel Connection. As part of this setup, we'll be going to the Employees section. And we will see that for each employee in the Employees section, we have a Locations tab as well. And this Locations tab will allow us to choose which location these employees can log into. This way we can effectively make sure that employees are only able to access their own location or are able to access multiple locations. You'll also notice under the General tab for each employee, we have a default location that we can set. With this default location, when an employee logs into Kennel Connection, the client list will default to that location to prevent accidentally logging in to a different location. This way you can be sure that employees at your main location always start at their main location when they log in. Now that we've gone over the basic setup, we're going to take a look at choosing the locations. So as I mentioned, we have our location here in the client list, and we saw in the employee section how we can set these up as default and restrict access to them for specific employees. The location selection in the client list determines which location Kennel Connection is currently functioning at. So right now, we are in Kennel Connection for the main location. By selecting the arrow, we can bring the drop down up and choose which location we want to be in. And we are now currently in the second location. You'll notice at the second location, I do not have a client list. I'm going to go back to the main location for the moment. Whenever we select a location, all settings that we are looking at, everything that's in Kennel Connection right now, is for the main location. So during the beginning of this video, when we went into business info, system options, the employee section, those were all those sections for the main location. If we go into the second location, for example, and go into the employees section, we'll see that I have no employees currently set up at the second location. Each location in your multi-locations module must be set up separately. Each one has to have their own employees section set up. They will have their own inventory section set up. Their system options and lists will have to be set up individually. Even under the Global tab in System Options, that only still refers to global as far as all computers on a network. So when first setting up your multi-location module, you will want to go into each location and make sure that your settings are set up appropriately for each location. If we open up a customer here in the main location, and go to the Info tab, we'll see that we have the customer's location here. This customer is currently set up as being at the main location. This is the customer's home location. We can change that location. And if we look now, I can go to the second location and see that I have switched that customer's home location to the second location. This is the location where the customer is considered to be home at and where that customer's financial information will be recorded unless otherwise specified. When using the multi-location module, you have the option to create client lists for each location individually or sharing them across all locations. So for example, one option I have would be to keep all my clients on the main location list and just create reservations for individual locations as they occur. This can be done through the other way of selecting locations in Kennel Connection, and for that we're going to open up one of our modules, and we'll see that on the schedule, in this case for the Daycare module, we also have a location dropdown. When we open up our schedules in Kennel Connection, they will default to the location that we are currently logged into. So in this case, the main location we are currently signed into on the client list, so that is the location that the schedule appears in. However, I can switch locations on the schedule where I will be able to see reservations on the other location, modify them, or add new reservations. So with this setup, if I'm looking at the second location and I want to create a reservation for one of my main location pets, I can simply drag the pet into the schedule, and I am now creating a reservation for the second location. This pet will be checked in and checked out at the second location, and invoices created for this reservation will be recorded at the second location. So using this setup, we are able to switch back and forth between locations in the client list and on the schedule. One important thing to remember when using the multi-locations module is that if you are going back and forth between locations in your schedules, not to lose sight of the fact that regardless of what location the schedule is showing, it is the location under the client list that dictates what location we are currently in Kennel Connection. So even though we have the second location selected for Daycare, we are looking at the main location's client list, system option setup, and reports that we run are for this location. If you have any questions regarding the technical nature of setting up the multi-location module, either for new locations or for currently existing locations, please feel free to contact our technical support department directly at support@bluecrystalsoftware.com. If you have any additional setup or usage questions regarding this multi-location module, please contact the training department directly at training@bluecrystalsoftware.com.